Hello, welcome to this video on named range, goal seek, scenario and solver. So let's start with named range. I have here one of the sample tables I used in sorting, in the video on sorting. It's a fictitious table of internally generated revenue of states in Nigeria. I have the states on this column here. I have each of the months on this row and the figures for the states below the months, like this. And you will notice that the months are not well arranged, so we're going to start with refreshing our memory on how to do sorting across rows, across column this time around, sorting from left to right, not the usual top to down. So I'm going to select everything like I've done here, then I'll right click, I'll come to sort, custom sort. I'm going to unselect my data as headers because I want it to sort starting from the first row, and I'm going to go to options, say sort left to right. Okay, I'm going to specify where the sorting header is. It's on row 2. Start sorting using this. So I'm going to click on OK, and that has done it. So I have that done. It's arranged January, February to June. So next is I want to sort the states also. So I'm going to select everything to make sure they are all sorted in sync. So I'll right click, I'll go to sort, custom sort. Then this time around I'll have to go back to sort top to bottom, the default options in Excel if you hadn't changed it. Okay, then I'll say my data as headers because these are my header, and I'm going to say sort using the state. So I'm going to click on OK. So now I have them A to Z, Abia to Zamfara. So I'm going to now show you the benefit of using named range and what a named range really is, because in the next sections for goal seek and scenario we're going to need using named range. So named range is simply when, rather than, you see this cell is B3, but if you don't want to refer to it as B3, you want to give it a name which makes more sense when you use it in formulas and when you use it in some specific analysis like scenario and goal seek. So you want something more meaningful in your results. So those are the practical benefits of naming a range. A range can be one cell or a group of cells. So I'm going to start with naming a group of cells. So I'm going to select every revenue data for Abia state, and I'm going to call it Abia. So I'm going to go to formulas. So I'll come to name manager. So I'll say new. Remember, I've already selected the group of cells I want to give a name. So I'll click on new. Excel will detect that yes, I've selected this range, and Excel is quite intelligent. It's going to note by default to say, oh, do you really want to name it by what is on the left side, which is Abia in this case, which I'll go with that. That's what I want. So I'll say I pretty much like what is done for me because I originally wanted to name it as Abia and it's figured that out itself. So I'll just go with OK. So I'll close. I'll do the same for Adamawa, named manager, new. I'll go with the default done for me. So I'm going to create a new field. I'll call it total, and then half year, because we all know January to June is half year, is half a year, so it's the total revenue for half a year. And if I want to do the sum of the revenue from January to June will give me what we've made in total for that first half of the year. So it's equal to sum. Now notice when I select this entire range, you'll see it's showing me Abia. This makes more sense. Whoever is going to look through my formula gets an understanding rather than having all the time to scroll down to view which state it's on. Let's say for instance, I have so many other data. Let me zoom to mimic that. I'm going to zoom. Okay, so now you'll notice, for me to see if I'm here, for me to notice which state I'm summing for, I will need to scroll back and see, oh, this is Abia. But when you've named your cell, when you've named some of your ranges, name them in a relevant way like this, your formulas will be much more meaningful. Whoever is looking at this will know, oh, this is some for Abia. If I want to do for the next one, which is Adamawa, I can simply type. Now let me unzoom. Okay, let me go back to my normal zoom ratio, 100%. So now let's do for the next, which is Adamawa. Rather than me having to go select this all over again, I can simply type Adamawa. And the good thing is I will get a tooltip because I've named it. Excel knows there is a range called Adamawa, and it gives me as a tooltip, and I can double click on it or use the tab key. If I double click, it completes for me. I click enter, it does it. It helps speed up my activities and make my formulas much more easy to edit. If I'm working in a data intensive unit of the company, this is a very good way to make your reports, so whoever is going to take over from you is not going to have a tough time making sense of what you've done. Whatever you've done, people will be able to build on it. Errors will be very minimal, and that is pure. This is one of the very simplest use of named range. Apart from the fact that when you're making codes, when you're writing macros, Excel macros, named range is very important. It makes your macro much more readable. It makes things easier for you to edit, to update, to make changes in your macro, because everything is much more logical. The cell ranges are sensible ranges, are things people can make sense of. From seeing the name, they will know, oh, this is what you are trying to do there. So now that is it with named range, and I'm going to move on to the next, which is goal seek. So let's do goal seek. I'm going to want to copy the table in here and move it to goal seek. I'll copy this, so I'll paste it here. Okay, so let's say we have each of the states. There is a target, there is a half-year target, there is a target of making a particular amount of revenue. They had a target for the whole year, and then by taking half of that, you get the target for half a year. So we're going to say we haven't yet done the revenue for June. Let's say we are in May, but this is what we've made so far, and then this is the target, the budgeted revenue. Let me use the budgeted revenue, then first, let's say half year. Okay, and I'm going to use some fictitious number here. I'll make up the numbers as we go. Let's say for Abia State, the budgeted revenue for the whole year is 18 million, and so for half a year that will be 9 million. So I'm going to say 9 million. 9 1 2 3 1 2 3. And you remember how to copy formats, which is simply I select what I have here, I come to home, format painter, then I click on any cell I want to apply that format. Okay, so I'm going to enter some random numbers for this. In fact, I'm going to make that format painter do for all the states. Okay, so I'm going to begin to 20 million 1 2 3 1 2 3. So I'm going to just use a random figure for the other countries except Lagos. Where's Lagos? I know Lagos has much more than that, so Lagos, I'm going to put 40. We want to know what it is the state must do for June to meet their targeted revenue. I've made a mistake. This should be in billions, not millions. If you look at these are all in billions, so I should have put this in billions, not millions. And to fix that, all I will do is I will use a special way of multiplying everything here by 1000 without using a formula. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'll enter the 1000 here. Now I'm going to copy this, Ctrl C, and then to paste it, I'm going to act as if I want to paste it here, but I'm going to go to paste special. Then I'll say paste as values, but while pasting, multiply whatever is in that cell before with what I'm going to paste there. So it's not a regular pasting, it's more of multiplication. And I'll do OK. So it's done that. I can safely delete this. That's why it's different from formula. If it's a formula, deleting this will obviously affect what I've done here, but because of that way of pasting, I have done it without linking it to this formula. So just to remove this border, I will do clear all. So now we have what each state has already in their budget as revenue. Abia has budgeted to make 18 billion naira for the year, and so far these are what they've done January to May. But for them to meet that budget, they must make 9 billion naira, half of that 18 billion naira, 9 billion naira in the first half of the year. Then they will be left with facing, running after the remaining 9 billion naira. So far they've made these. We need to figure out what it is they should make for June to meet this revenue, to meet this budgeted revenue. We can do that simply by doing this minus sum of what they've already made for the January to May. And then you will know who Abia is meant to make once Abia can make this or more than this, it's going to make the budget, the target for that half year. So this is exactly what GoalSeek does. So I'm going to show you how to do this using GoalSeek. So this is a simple way of using GoalSeek. In the next sheet, I'll show you a much more complex example where you can't use this minus this to replicate what GoalSeek is going to do. So I just want to use this to explain to you exactly what GoalSeek does. We're going to create a cell called check. So check is going to be this minus sum of everything in here so this meaning what we want is we want this check to be 0, meaning this minus everything from January to June should be equal. Whatever we've made from January to June should equal this, which means when we do this minus sum of everything here, it should be 0. So that's why I've called it check. I'm going to just drag it down to do for the other cells. I'll double click here to expand the cells to contain the contents so you don't see that pound signs. So let's do the GoalSeek. What if analysis, GoalSeek. So set this cell to whatever is here. I want to set it to 0. And then by changing what? By changing this cell, by putting some values in that cell. So I'm going to go click on OK. It's going to start, see, begins to guess what number should be here that will turn this to 0, and it does that. So okay, then if I want to do for the other cells, I'll keep doing that. GoalSeek, return what is here to 0 by changing this cell, and it does for that. So you can practice with the remainder, you can do for the remaining entries. And so I'm going to move on to the next. I'm going to show you a much more reasonable scenario to use goal seek, because what we've done here, we could have done them using just that, like that formula I showed you, this minus everything here will give me this. So rather than having to go through the long process of this and goal seek, so this is just to explain how goal seek works. So let's go over to a basic a usual scenario where goal seek is your best option. So here is a loan calculation table. I'm going to delete all this because I'm going to redo it for you. So let's say you want to borrow a loan. You want to borrow from the bank 100 million naira, and then you are given 10 years to pay back, and you're given an interest rate of 18%. You want to know how much you need to pay yearly for you to be able to repay the entire loan. Now, to do that, it's a long formula if you want to do that manually, but Excel has an equivalent formula that will calculate that for us. So I'm going to go to formulas. I'll go to financial. It comes under, it's a financial formula. I'll keep scrolling down. The name of the formula is PMT. This is it, payment. So this is the formula, and these are the arguments. We already have here rate. So for the rate, this is rate. It's asking me number of periods. We've got 10 payment periods. Then saying what is the present value, what is the total amount we are working on, the principal value in present time. So this is you are borrowing 100 million naira, but in this case, because you are borrowing the money, it's more like it's not yours, it's a liability. So I'm going to put in -1. So instead of just using this, I'm going to put a negative sign beside it, so it's minus B1. So you can see it's showing me is minus 100 million, and then that's also all. For this, you don't need this. Is if you want, if you're doing some other calculations where you have current money, you are not starting with 0. This is for us here. We are not going to need any of these options, and I'm going to click on OK, and this is done for us. So this is how much you'll be paying every year for the next 10 years, because you've borrowed 100 million naira at rate of 18%. So if you do, let's see how much that equals. So you are paying this amount every year for 10 years. So this is what you end up paying. And let me copy this, format painter, paste here. So actually you are paying more than 2 times of what you borrowed. You borrowed 100 million naira, and you're going to repay 222.5 million naira. And this is why it's not so good to borrow to spend on something that will not generate money for you. So that's why it's advised, don't borrow to buy a car. In fact, except you're getting a mortgage at a very low rate, you shouldn't borrow to even buy your house, because in effect you'll be paying most times more than double what you're borrowing. That's what you'll be repaying. So let's say you want to renegotiate the terms. You can't afford to pay 22.25 million naira every year. So this is where goal seek is going to come very handy. So what if analysis, goal seek. So this time around, want to fiddle with this cell. Let's say you want to pay 18 million per year. That's what you want to be able to pay. You want to negotiate for you to pay 18 million per year for the same 10 years. So you want to see what interest rate you should ask for. So we're going to put in 18 million, 1 2 3 1 2 3. And by changing what cell? By changing the interest rate. So I'm going to go okay, and there you see. So for you to pay 18 million per year, you have to negotiate for 12% loan interest rates. But what if you feel they might not be willing to give you that so much drop? That's like dropping by over 30% their interest rate from 18 to 12. So that's about 33.33% discounts. Banks are really, they won't give you that a big cut. So let's say you change your mind, you're willing to pay up to 20 million per year. So once again, we'll do the goal seek. We want to change this to 20 million. 1 2 3 1 2 3 by changing the interest rates. Okay, and very quickly it does it. So you can negotiate for 15%, which is, they're just taking off 3% of the loan. So this is a very relevant way of using GoSeek. This is a very useful scenario where GoSeek comes in handy, and this is how you use GoSeek. So let's move on to the next, which is scenario and solver. This is going to be very useful for those of you who run your own business, or you do some project management, where there's cost involved and you need to estimate revenue. So I'm going to take an example. Let's say I'm organizing a very high quality full day Excel training, and then I've called the hotel. They said the hotel conference room costs 600,000 naira for one day. Then the feeding per participant is 12,500 naira. For my participants, I have a training material that costs 3,000 naira to make. The certificate is going to cost 2,000 naira. Then there's a prize. We've got a prize for the best participant, and that is 100,000 naira. So these are my costs for organizing that Excel training. And then here are my analysis. So I'm assuming I will get 40 participants, and I'm assuming I can charge them 100,000 naira per participant for the course. And this brings, so I'm going to have to redo this for you, so you'll be able to understand how. In fact, I have to redo everything here. So let's say once again, I'm assuming 40 participants. I'm assuming I can charge them 100,000 naira. So my total feeding cost is going to be number of participants and times the feeding cost per participant, which is 12,500 naira. Then the conference room, actually that's a fixed cost. Regardless of the number of participants I get, it's still 600,000 naira. Then there's the training material costs. The training material cost is going to be for each participant, so the number of participants, and then times 3,000 naira. Then training certificates is going to cost me number of participants times the certificate. So then the prize award, regardless of the number of participants, there's only going to be one best participant, so the prize award is going to be 100,000. And so from there I can figure out what my total revenue will be. So the total revenue is simply number of participants, money that came in, number of participants times the course fee itself. So I get 4 million naira. So what's the total cost? The total cost is all these expenses, the expenses to run the program itself. So this is the total cost. This is total feeding cost, conference room cost, training material cost, certificate cost, price award cost. So those are the total costs, and that is it. And I will be paying a 5% VAT to FIRS. So that is this times 0.05. Then usually there will be things that will come up, unexpected expenses. So it's good to peg that to some percentage. So I've taken 7% as that. So I'm expecting I might need to spend up to 7% of my total revenue to cover unforeseen costs at the training venue during the course of the training, and that is it. So my gross profit is going to be total revenue minus all my expenses. So this is going to be my gross profit. So this is very good if I'm able to get this. If I'm very sure of my 40 participants and 100 charging each 100,000 naira, this is very good. This is a very good venture for me. By tomorrow you will see my adverts on the full day Excel training, because it makes no business sense for me not to do it. But we all know things don't work out like this in reality. I have to make analysis. I have to do scenarios of, a best case scenario, a likely case scenario, and a worst case scenario. And this is where scenario comes to play. So also scenario is under what if analysis. So I'm going to have to show you why we had to learn named range. Because for scenario, to make some of what we are going to do meaningful, we need to name some of these cells. So I'm going to name this cell, I'm going to name it num underscore participants. So number of participants. There's a shortcut for naming single cells like this. You can simply come here and type in whatever name you want to give it. So num underscore, just make sure there is no space in your naming. Num underscore participants. Num underscore participants, and do enter. That does it. Then I'm going to name this course fee. So done. I'm going to name this gross profit. I'm going to name let's leave it for those three for now. If in my report I need to do some renaming, I can always come back to do the renaming. So let me show you how scenarios work. So I'm going to come here and let's start with the number of participants. So scenario manager. So I'm going to add scenarios. I'm going to call this scenario best case scenario. No, best scenario. So I'm going to say the best scenario is the cells will be changing. Will be this. We'll be changing number of participants. So then comma total cost fee, right? So, and I'm going to, once I've done that, I'll say okay. So it's going to tell me, okay, do I want to go along with the figures currently in it? This looks like a very good scenario, so I can leave this as the best scenario. So this is the worst I can do. This is the maximum I can charge people, 100, and then the maximum participants I can easily get for that price. Is 40. So I'm going to say okay, that is good. Then I'll add another scenario. I'm going to call this worst. So for worst, I'm going to take half of this. I'm going to say, what if I get just 20 and people are not agreeing to pay 100, they want to pay 50. So they want to pay 50,000. Then I'll go with one more, which is, I would say, I'll call these normal. So for normal, I'm going to choose in between. So I'll say, what if I get 30 and I'm able to charge them 70,000 naira? So once I'm done, I'm going to tell the scenario manager to show me a summary. So report type, I want it as a summary type. So result cell, yeah, this is my result cell. It's figured that out itself, but if it had chosen something wrong, I will have come here, I will have to manually specify that. So I want to see the gross profit for each of those three scenarios. So I'll click on OK, and this is it. So it creates another Excel sheet for me and it calls it scenario summary. and then it shows me if I get 40 people and I charge them 100,000 naira, my profit is going to be this 2.1 million naira, which is very good. Okay, then this my current values is the same as my best value, so I'm getting that. Very good. If the worst case happens, I get 20 people and they all agree to pay 50, I'm only able to charge them 50,000 naira, then I'll be making a loss. I'll be losing, rather than making money, I'll be losing 170,000 naira. But if I'm able to get 30 people and I'm charging them 70,000 naira, I'll still be able to turn some profits. I'll be able to turn 623,000 naira as profits. And this is a very business relevant way of using the scenario manager. And that is it for scenario. So lastly, let's talk about solver. You can use this for any other thing. You can use it to figure out your product. Maybe you sell a product, you want to know, you have a store, you want to know how much volume of sales you need to meet your sales target, or you want to plan for the year, so you want to know what is a reasonable amount to target as your sales target in terms of volume. This will help you to figure out what is reasonable to go after, and how, if you are not able to meet your goal, how close, what would be the worst case scenario, what would be an ideal or normal scenario, and what if you meet, what's the best scenario. So that's a practical reason, a practical case of using the scenario solver, the scenario manager, and once again it's under what if analysis. Next, we're going to do solver. Solver takes this whole thing just one step forward. So I'm going to show you how you access the solver. So by default, you wouldn't see the solver anywhere in your Excel. You won't see it. If you go through all the tabs, you're not going to find it, because by default solver is not enabled in your Excel. So to enable it, you come to file, you will come to options, you come to add-ins, then you see this analysis toolpack. You right click on, you click on it, and then you say go. So here you see the solver add-in, but it would be good you enable analysis toolpack and solver add-in. Then you click on OK. So you'll see it under data, and then this is the solver. So let's click on the solver, and then you get to see what it does. So solver also the same. You have an objective here, something you want to track. In this case, this is it, our gross profit, and then you want to give it, you want to find out how you can manipulate these to get something really worthwhile here. So I'm going to, once again, this is my objective, and if I'm only looking for a revenue of, let's say all I want is just 500,000 naira as my profit for that training. So 500, 1, 2, 3. Then it's going to ask me, so what are the cells I want to manipulate? Okay, so these are the cells I want to manipulate, these two cells. Great. So I'm going to add some constraints too. Let's say there's a maximum. I know I can't get, because of all capacity, I know, let me add a constraint. I know my number of participants, I can't go beyond 50. The hall can't take beyond 50, so I will add that constraint. Then for course fee, I can add one more constraint and say for course fee, I don't want to charge people above 100. It's going to be terribly hard to find someone who's going to pay more than 100,000 naira for a Microsoft Excel training. So I'm going to add that other constraint. Once I'm done, I'll click OK. So I have two constraints here. So now it's for me to now let Excel figure out. It's going to try to solve. If I click on solve, it's going to try and find an ideal balance between the two. So I'll click on solve. Then it gives me this. It says if you're able to get 29, if you're able to get 29 people and they pay you 66,000, let's say I get 30 people, they pay me about 66,000, I've still turned a decent profit of 500,000 naira. So if I don't want these, I can say no, I don't want these. That would be restore original values, and I'll click OK. But if I want it, I can say okay, all right, let's keep these, let's keep this solution, and let's save this scenario. I'm going to save it as okay, this is the 500k profit scenario. 500k profits scenario. Once I've done, I'll say okay, and I can redo the solver analysis again. And this time around, let's say I want to target 1 million naira, and leaving that same constraint. Let's see, so how can I do the combination? Excel tells me okay, if I'm able to get 33 people and they agree to pay me about 79,000 naira, then I can turn a profit of 1 million naira. And also if I like this, I can save the scenario. So I'll say it's profits 1 million. And that is how you use the solver. It's very useful. You can see it takes the whole scenario manager one step ahead. And that is it for this video. And don't forget to check out our website, yourbizedge.com, and we do custom corporate Excel training and custom Excel training for professionals. We build custom applications that automate your annual reports, your monthly reports, optimize your templates, your reporting templates. We also do data analysis outsourcing. You have data, lots of data, and you need to make sense of them, and you've got a really low time deadline, or you don't want to use, and you don't want to have a dedicated in-house person to do it, because it's not so regular, it's not worth having a full staff for. You can outsource it to us. We fix them for you at a very lightning fast rate, and you get to do your core business. And so thank you.